Hey guys, my name is Mike and I'm a Dragon Ball fan. I've been a fan of this franchise for the vast majority of my life. I remember watching the original Dragon Ball when I was a kid before it was ever even on Toonami. And then I ended up watching Dragon Ball Z when it was in syndication on WB before it ever went to Cartoon Network. I pretty much grew up with this franchise, watching and rewatching it again and again and again. I've seen Dragon Ball. I've seen Dragon Ball Z. I've seen Dragon Ball GT all the way through many times. I've even read the manga, something that I know the vast majority of you watching this video right now have never done and have no real intention of ever doing. After all, I have all the polls that back that up. And of course, yes, I have seen Dragon Ball Super a number of times through in the English and the Japanese. I've also read that manga too. And I've also even seen Super Dragon Ball Heroes, which is terrible, but I certainly have seen some of it until I just decide not to watch it anymore. And so I also recently saw the trailer and even reacted to it for Dragon Ball Daima, the new series that came out or is going to come out in next year, 2024, or this year if you're watching in that year, or in the past if you're watching in the future. With that being said, I love the Dragon Ball franchise, especially what Akira Toriyama created in his manga back from 1984 up until 1995, 11 years, which spanned the initial start where Goku meets Bulma when he's still a kid up until when Goku flies away with Oob. And yes, for the people who haven't read the manga, it is all one story. Goku meeting Bulma and when he was a kid is not a prequel. It is the part that actually happened first, just in America and a lot of other English-speaking countries. Well, when they originally aired that back with the Harmony Gold dub and so on, when I was a little kid and I saw it, didn't really catch on until they brought back Dragon Ball Z in the United States, and most people started there. Kind of like how most people start with Lord of the Rings instead of The Hobbit, but that doesn't make The Hobbit the prequel, now does it? But with that being said, with the reaction to Dragon Ball Daima, there was something I continued to see over and over and over again. I continued to hear over and over and over again. And that was the word we. And more specifically, people saying, we don't want this. Nobody asked for this. We want more Dragon Ball Super. We want to see the Moro Arc adapted. We want to see the Granola Arc adapted. Again and again and again and again, I heard these people saying, we only wanted this. But I have to say, right here and now, straight from the heart, I'm not one of the people that you include in we. I don't know who you are or who any of these people are to speak for the entire fandom and say that we only wanted. Because I know that, with my experience on YouTube, it's become abundantly clear that what I want is very much at odds with a lot of what the casual fans, the Johnny-come-lately fans, and a lot of the other people in this community want. But nonetheless, at the end of the day, when it comes to this, no, I did not want to see the Moro Arc get adapted. After all, I read that in the manga, and why would I want to see a very disappointing and poorly executed conclusion, especially coming to anime? Why would I care or want to see Granola adapted when I cared so little about that arc, I haven't even bothered to read it? In fact, I had Geekdom 101 spoil the whole thing for me, as you guys can see in the top right corner. And with regard to everything, why would I want Dragon Ball Super to come back at all? Just because I talk about Dragon Ball on my channel? Just because I'm supposed to be lumped in, along with all the other fans that feel the very same way as me, into your little 2-letter, 1-word, 1-syllable we? I'm sorry to break it to you, but I don't. Because the truth of the matter is, despite the fact that I love this franchise, that I have watched it for, I don't know, somewhere around 30 years now, the fact that I have rewatched and reread it countless times and talked about it more than anyone has ever thought about in their entire life for the most part, aside from other people who do this, the truth of the matter is, I simply do not care if Dragon Ball Super ever returns. And this goes back to an entire history of me watching and observing it. And I know that there's probably a lot of people who are going to be commenting down below in the comments, already just deciding based upon the title alone that I am, well, what they would usually call me when the franchise was actually airing Super, and I was bringing up normal criticisms about it, that I am not a real fan, that I am a hater, that I'm doing this for rage clicks. And the list of, ad hominems and scarecrow straw man tactics and everything like that keeps going back and back and back. But for all of you guys who are used to watching my videos or anyone who's new here, well, with regard to all that, I'm going to explain exactly why I don't care, because the truth of the matter is, this isn't coming from some fake fan. A fake fan doesn't own and have the entire manga behind me. And I'm not even going to edit this video, because the truth of the matter is, it's all right from the heart, right from how I truly feel about this franchise at its current point in time. And the fact of the matter is that somewhere along the way, particularly around this section, this franchise really just started to fall off and simply has never recovered. And despite the fact that so many people believe that Dragon Ball Super is not only that recovery, but also rises even further beyond, as Goku said we went to a Super Saiyan 3, to the highest level it's ever been before, I hate to break it to you, but I simply don't agree with that assessment. And so many other people who have commented on my videos over the years also do not agree, even if we're in the minority. Hey, I've never really been adverse to that anyway. I've never necessarily gone along with the mainstream or necessarily curtailed me talking about things like in this video that a lot of my other fellow creators or people in this community might view as extremely detrimental to say. But at the end of the day, the truth always comes out. And with that being said, this is how I view it. So when Dragon Ball Super was first announced, for many years, I had felt that I was looking forward to a continuation. I always hoped that they would do more. I came up with my own idea of what a continuation of Dragon Ball would be like. Maybe bringing back Deborah, exploring the demon realm. A lot of the things that are in Daima right now, apparently, and that people are, saying is automatically terrible because Goku got shrunk down to a kid again. But then again, how many of these people have actually seen GT, especially the ardent Super fans who claim that it's the best part of the franchise when there are even parts of GT that are better. But when Super was announced, I was kind of excited for it. I loved the Battle of Gods movie when it first came out. I wasn't really a fan of Resurrection F, but hey, I wanted to see more Dragon Ball. Unfortunately, they already kind of soured things from the start in a sense, because even though I was hyped like everyone else, I was sitting in front of my TV, I was ready to watch the new Dragon Ball unfold. I then went on to find out, oh wait, the entire thing takes place during a pre-established time skip, which we already know the conclusion of, which is from the time when Goku destroyed Kid Buu with the Spirit Bomb to when he meets his Resurrection Oob and flies off after the tournament in order to train him. Everything within that timeline had already been established. Initially, it was supposed to be peaceful, which I actually broke down in a video you guys can also see in the top right corner, talking about the biggest retcon Dragon Ball Super, which, guess what? It's actually, the entire existence of that. So with that being said, 10 years of peace, well, now it's kind of 10 years of, well, who knows how many years have passed in Dragon Ball Super, because it basically has Ash Ketchum syndrome up until Dragon Ball Super Superhero, when they're like, oh yeah, Goten and Trunks are like 57 years old right now, maybe we should actually have them, I don't know, age a little bit. And then ironically, they had Gohan, the character we actually saw aging on screen and growing, be the one to say that, oh, they sprout up like leaves. And, like basically what Toriyama said in interviews that already themselves were contradictory, but they tried to include in the Super continuity. But that already set a big damper on everything because the fact that, well, Super takes place during a time skip, which means there is zero tension whatsoever. We already know what's going to happen, and the vast majority of characters that are introduced that they could actually make us care about and be a little bit feeling the tension for them, they barely develop them, and most of the time it just takes a back seat to the exact same characters it always has to, which is Goku, a character who at the end of the Cell Saga flew away forever, only to come back in the next arc and take over as the main character again because, hey, next generation, you guys are going to take over and you're going to win. Oh, wait, never actually mind that. That's not the case anymore, even though that was literally the message of the end of the Buu Saga when he flies away with Oob. Not, hey kid, I'm going to come and train you, I'm going to fight you, and I'm going to beat you, and I'm still going to be the main character. No, you're going to be the next hero of the Earth. And then, of course, Vegeta, because for some reason this franchise at this point in time, everything always gets boiled back down to the rivalry between Goku and Vegeta. Even though Goku and Vegeta really were both over this by the time that Dragon Ball Super actually starts, they had to regress both their characters to the point to where they have this infinite cyclical rivalry where Vegeta's always like, I must surpass you, Kakarot. And Goku's always like, who are you again? Oh yeah, Vegeta, you're my friend and training partner. Yeah, sure, you'll surpass me for sure. Like he doesn't care because he shouldn't. And that's the thing, another big issue that happened with Dragon Ball Super is the characters. Goku's IQ, which many people would argue wasn't very high to begin with, has already been chopped down to a fraction of what it was. It's like he hit his head on a rock right after the fight with Kid Buu and brain damaged himself even harder, even further beyond. And Vegeta, well, like I just said, he literally starts off Dragon Ball Super by saying, I have admitted and accepted that you're number one, Kakarot, but now I won't be number two for long. I'm going to surpass you. It's like, so they already started to butcher the characters. Look at Gohan, where he goes back and forth between being weak and being strong again and again and again, because Toriyama, Toyotaro, and the people who are running Dragon Ball simply don't have the creativity or care to actually make him have a strong story arc. And let's not forget about perhaps the most butchered character in Dragon Ball Super, Future Trunks. Another one of my absolute favorites who, they decide to bring in, give ridiculous power-ups to, and then in turn, well, what happened? They also obliterate his timeline from existence, everything that he fought for, and gave him a truly terrible ending, which is by far the worst ending in the franchise, which alone makes Dragon Ball Super simply not the level of the others that came before it. But they would do that again, the Moro Arc, where they build up Vegeta the entire arc to win with his brand new training, his brand new technique, and oh wait, he doesn't because he's Vegeta, and this franchise refuses to stop doing the same thing, rinse and repeat over and over again, all the while Goku and Vegeta are wearing the same clothes that they wore since the Cell Saga. They literally put those outfits back on in the case of Vegeta. And it just keeps going on and on and on again in terms of the issues that built up and accumulated, the power scaling issues, the various plot holes and inconsistencies and total disregard for the canon, how it's actually supposed to be, the character assassinations or bastardizations or whatever you want to call them, and then the bad animation that started everything off, which is one of the few things that most casual fans who don't put really much thought at all into what they're watching with regard to Dragon Ball, or most media in general, which I don't blame on them, I blame more on, the education system and the people that purposely try and hold them back from actually understanding what they're watching means, because, look at all of our media today and just how in your face the propaganda is. But I'm not going to get on a whole different rabbit hole down there of this. We're still talking about Dragon Ball Super. If you're interested in hearing me talk more about movies, live action stuff, basically everything I was just referencing, well, check out Laughingstock Cinema in the description. I'm not going to put it in the top right corner just in case I have some other videos to mention, me, or at least the new people might not know me, so check out my channel, check out my videos on there, because there's a lot of stuff I think you'll enjoy. Cheap plug, one of my Mick Foley, I got way too many in this video. But with that being said, everything started to build up and build up, where I was a really excited fan at the start of my timeline of Dragon Ball Super, to by the time it ended, I was just like, thank God that it ended, because I could not stand it anymore, especially with the tournament of dragging on, just padding. The tournament of padding is why I like to call it, instead the tournament of power, which, sometimes I like to just block out of my brain along with a lot of Dragon Ball Super as it is. But with the Tournament of Power, which, I've argued in the past might be the best normal arc of Dragon Ball Super, I'd still give the true arc in terms of being the best to Dragon Ball Super Broly, because yes, a movie can be an arc. Talked about that in the top right corner as well. Fact of the matter is that with regard to all of that, I just, it dragged on so much, like the Chimera Ant arc and meets Goku versus Frieza on Namek times 2 or times 20 or, times 100, like in the Lord Slug movie when he uses Kaioken there, even though that was only in a guide that, again, the canonicity of all of that is extremely debatable. Just like the canonicity of Dragon Ball Super that you could see in the top right corner. I'm definitely trying to do my best to turn off new people with all these cheap plugs now, aren't I? But the truth of the matter is, it just kept building up until the end of my timeline. Well, I just didn't want to deal with this anymore. I was tired of the bad scaling, the bad writing. The fact of the matter is that I was also tired of the fact that every single time I talked about Dragon Ball Super, I would constantly get tons and tons and tons of negative feedback, where it would just always be, anytime I would just give my honest opinion about the show, what would happen? Swarms of people coming into the comments. You're a hater, Mike. You're a fake fan. Just like all the things I said at the start of the video, because after years of doing this, it's kind of easy to anticipate how a lot of people are going to react, especially those who unfortunately invest so much of their own ego and so much of themselves into a series that they have nothing to actually do with. And so the second you start to criticize Dragon Ball Super, especially, regardless of how legitimate your criticisms are, which I saw, every single time I would make a Dragon Ball Super related video, and no matter how well you would show it, no matter how well you would construct the video, you would always get those negative comments. And they'd be much worse than that. People would also tell me to unalive myself and a lot of other things I don't want to say for the fact that I want this video to be monetized, especially if it does well. After all, this is YouTube. But the fact of the matter is that that's another reason why I don't really mind if Dragon Ball Super doesn't come back, because what's going to happen? Am I going to talk about on this channel? Am I going to discuss how basically everything I already said in the manga is pretty much the same issues in the anime with regard to if they adapt Moro, if they do another remake adaptation of not only Dragon Ball Super Broly, but also Dragon Ball Super Superhero, like they're doing in the manga that nobody cares about because nobody wants to read it because they want it to get to the new thing. And so what am I going to do? I'm just going to repeat myself ad infinitum, infinite who cares? Because do I want to just do the same thing I did when the series was starting? Or would I simply rather just accept at this point, like I wish a lot of other people in this fandom would do, that Dragon Ball Super simply never lived up to the level of quality it should have. It never was as good as it should have been. They should have spent decades watching other anime, seeing just how well constructed they were, seeing all the things that they could have done, planning everything out to make the best possible continuation of Dragon Ball there could ever be, to be able to surpass every single thing that came before it. It should have been a home run. And yet, by the time Dragon Ball Super came out, it was incredibly rushed. Toei and Shueisha were just trying to make extra money off of it, and they just continually just shoved everything in there for the sake of merchandise, marketing, advertising, and literally every other word you can think of that sums up avarice and greed simultaneously. And so the thing is that Dragon Ball Super, I've often liked to equate to, if you go to a bad restaurant and you're served a really just terrible meal. For a lot of the people in the fandom, they're so excited to get to that restaurant. They're so hungry for more food. They've been starving themselves. So by the time they start to eat that hamburger, let's say, or that soup, even though it has flies in it, even though it has maggots in it, even though it is containing rat feces and everything else along those lines, they're just eating it up, enjoying it, and asking for more. And if you, Well, somebody who is putting your hard-earned money, or in this case, your time, which is even more valuable than money, into this series, and you're a really hardcore fan who loves this franchise, who truly appreciates and understands what it represents, and yes, it is more than people just punching each other where light shows happen, guys. The fact of the matter is that when that happens, well, they object. They say, "Excuse me, sir, there is feces in my soup." And then the people at the other tables look at them. They're all angry and they say, "Stop complaining and enjoy the food." And so that's another reason why I'm not exactly excited for Dragon Ball Super to ever come back. Because even when I don't talk about Dragon Ball Super in this fandom, what exactly happens? Why aren't you talking about Dragon Ball Super? Why aren't you talking about and reviewing the Granola arc? You're clearly not a real fan because you're not talking about something you don't enjoy. And that's the thing at the end of the day. How many of these people truly enjoy Dragon Ball Super as much as they make it out to be? How many of these people are truly as in-depth and as loving and, hardcore fans as they make themselves out to be? And that's the thing. When Dragon Ball Super ended, so did the attention from so many of these fans. So many of the people who walked away from this. So many of the people who stopped watching videos about Dragon Ball. So many of the people who clearly weren't here because they're passionate about this franchise like I am, like so many of you watching right now are, but rather because it was the brand new shiny thing that they could talk about with other people who only care about these things at a very superficial level because it's popular. So in depth, in turn, what could they do? They could join into a conversation rather than actually being a truthful component within it. And so many of these, unfortunately, these, Mayweather, Fairyweather, whatever that is, the differing fans that will show up when something is popular, when it's hot, and then when it's not. Well, how much effort are they really putting into analyzing this anyway? So the truth of the matter is that really, when it all comes down to it, if I could boil everything down to why I don't care if this franchise, continues with Dragon Ball Super, and why I, if anything, am actually somewhat more interested in Daima coming back, because at the very least, Daima will be different. At the very least, Daima might take chances and might actually do something that isn't exactly the same we've seen before. I mean, it might also be terrible. After all, like I said, about after the Cell Saga, things in this franchise, well, they simply never kind of reach the same heights one more time. But the truth of the matter is, the biggest reason why I don't care if Dragon Ball Super ever comes back is simple. I don't like Dragon Ball Super. I have seen it more times than the vast majority of people watching this video in English, in Japanese. I've edited it frame by frame for my videos. I've read the manga more in depth up until a point where I didn't want to read it anymore because I didn't enjoy it. And that's how it is. Why should I, on my channel that I came back on to have more fun, to talk about things I'm passionate about, talk about or get excited for something that I don't like, that I don't think meets the quality of the previous stuff in this franchise, and ultimately, I don't have any desire to discuss. And that's truly what it comes down to. I'm way more interested in Daima coming back than seeing a anime adaptation of arcs I don't enjoy, don't care about, and don't even want to see continued. I don't even want Toyotaro to even be writing anything in this franchise anymore. As far as I'm concerned, he's shown time and time and time again he is not qualified to do it, that he has written some of the worst parts of this franchise, and Dragon Ball Super unfortunately encapsulates many of them. So at the end of the day, the way I'm going to conclude this video is by saying I simply don't care if Dragon Ball Super ever returns. If you do, if you're excited for it, if you're looking forward to it, well, I guess more power to you. At the end of the day, I like what I like, I don't like what I don't like, and the same thing is the case for you. This is only how I feel. And at the end of the day, this is all based upon my own experiences as a channel that has oftentimes discussed Dragon Ball on here, and not just that, but as a hardcore fan for decades at this point. If you like things based upon their own merits, if you like them based upon a variety of other things you could fill a dictionary with, that's totally fine by me. But for me, I simply don't care if it ever comes back. And if you feel the same way, And I'm sure you're already doing this, but if you disagree, let me know your own thoughts down below in the comments. If you like this video, leave a like and also share it out. And thank you all so much for staying this whole time. All of what you're doing in that case is helping the channel. So even those of you who might comment and say that you hate me and you hope that every breath I take is full of poison or something crazy like that, well, you're just giving me more engagement anyway. So thanks a lot. But with all that being said, I look forward to seeing some of you on my channel in the future. We'll have to see just how big the number drops this time with a number of subscribers. But hey, all that being said, make sure to stick around because there's a lot more to come as long as I don't keep hitting my microphone in the future. Just hopefully not Dragon Ball Super.
Yeah, and you better subscribe.